What's going on YouTube? It's your boy Lurker back with another video, and today got a special video. It's a Jubilee video. Do women really have it harder? Male feminists versus anti-feminists. Jubilee just dropped this video and I figured it would probably be a good video to react to. It's a little long, so without further ado, let's just hop straight into it, alright? Alright, let's hop straight into this.
The only thing that I could think that justifies being a feminist today is you must just want to get laid. There's no reason
an hour long.
In all of these crazy things that seek to strip you of your
we're in it for the long haul.
These terrible ideas that men are evil and
I'm only talking right now because
the reason.
Yeah, I knew that was gonna happen.
Step forward if you agree with the prompt.
Ooh, Ludwig's gonna be
Women
live
have it
soon.
easier than they think they do.
Women have it easier than they think they do. Okay, I can kind of see why some people are going in the middle.
With feminism, it's kind of brainwashed women to think that they are victims in 99% of cases.
Wait, hold on. They're all guys.
With feminism, it's kind of brainwashed women to think that they are victims in 99% of cases, and all the disenfranchisement that they would claim in like colleges and careers. A lot of these careers are way easier to get into for women than they are for men because they're looking to hire women because of feminism.
Yeah, like in divorce and stuff, they get more property, the kids' rights, all that.
Yeah.
But more so, I think that from the jump, actually have it easier. Like, men need to be a provider. They're taught to be tough. Oh, why are you crying? Don't be a girl. But when a girl is crying or a girl is upset or anything that happens, usually they're a princess and they're given the world.
Well, yeah, because with women, they're born with their value. They innately have value. They can create life, and they're extremely valuable from birth.
Has anybody even heard of anti-feminists? I've never even heard of that before. I didn't know that was a group. Male feminists. Okay, these are the male feminists. So they're gonna believe that women have it harder. Okay.
For men, it's not really the same way. You have to make something of yourself to be respected.
Exactly. Like a pretty woman can go far just using her face. A man can't do that. A man can't go to a rich businessman or like a businesswoman and be like, I'm good looking, let me come to your yacht.
Right.
A woman can't.
Right.
Let's bring the disagreeers forward.
Just a second ago, you were saying that a pretty woman could go onto a rich man's yacht and that would be kind of her ticket, right? Okay, so did that help women vote at all?
Personally, I don't think women have it easier than they think they do. I probably would have stood off to the side, but I can understand people making the argument that they do have it easier. They're looking through a lens of privilege to even come up with that.
Being pretty?
But what does that have to do with
I'm just asking, because I mean, when we're talking about women's lives being better than they think they are, would you rather be pretty and be able to get on a yacht or have your liberties?
What are we living in, like 1950s or 2022?
Yeah.
They already have the right to vote
for a long time.
I think something you specifically said.
Yeah, that guy bringing up the right to vote, that was in what, 1920, 1929?
To me, why women don't have it easy. I think it was you who said, women already have their value. Their value is already obvious because they can have children. I don't want to put you into a box, but there are large amounts of men. Women are people that have children and then they raise the child and they be quiet.
And I think
that is a problem.
I think what was really evident to me when both of y'all came up and talked was how indoctrinated into the patriarchy you are, right? You both come up and say, as men, we have to prove something. And those expectations that you put on yourself is a direct result of patriarchy and the systems that feminism is trying to dismantle.
As are the values that women have that when they were born that you're talking about. Women did not create those.
Right.
Men did.
Those are God ordained. Men and women are both equal under God and in value as human beings. In Genesis, you have a creation of both men and women that are made in God's image.
We're not about
to
quote the Bible and like some feminist talk.
Hold on, but
I mean, we can.
We're operating in a country where there's a separation of church and state. You cannot use religion as a motivation to make legislation.
If I hear one more person use religion as a reason to not give rights to people, I'm probably gonna fucking explode. People
okay, calm down, Tucker. It's not that
as
deep.
An excuse to implement legislation over other people's lives are simply just not okay with the fact that they can't control everything around them.
Back to the prompt, I mean, I don't think that women have it easier than they think they do. And I think to just make blanket statements like women in society.
Personally, I think women have it harder than they think they do, just the same as men. Men have it harder than they think they do. I think both genders have it harder than they think they actually do. But you never think about the other gender because your whole life, you spend your whole life as one gender. Well, unless you're gender fluid. But for the most part, on average, you know, all right, let's get back in. I don't know where I was going with that.
They have it easy, or men in society have it harder, or whatever you want to say. I just think it's kind of naive. Sure, maybe some women think they have it easier, but that might not be because they're a woman. It might just be because of their own set of...
I'm trying to think of who I agree with most. I'm hearing all their opinions, though.
Life challenges, and vice versa.
It's just a touchy subject, because you don't want to say the wrong thing. You'll end up sounding like Andrew Tate.
And I agree. And one of the reasons that I am so passionately anti-feminist is because I believe that feminism pits men against women. Men and women may be equal today, but they are not the same. But also, too, women are under a pressing assault today in this country. They're losing their ability to compete in sports, beauty pageants, also basic things like that to people that identify as women. And no one is talking about it. Feminists aren't talking about it. So now you have conservatives having to fight for women's equality in
You're making
spaces.
some pretty blanket statements saying feminists don't care about it. And you say, you think that all women just are against men.
To answer your question, yeah, you're talking about women. Women are not all feminists. Yeah. There are plenty of feminists who are very anti-woman. You know, you saw it during in the political era where you have people who will attack Kayleigh McEnany and Kellyanne Conway because they aren't pro-women. They're not for the girls.
So you...
actually, we have like just a little bit left. I haven't heard Kevin yet.
Yeah, when you talked about the pressures of being a man and having to provide and having to prove your value as a man, I think those are real challenges that men face. That's why, like, women have it harder too, because they are also being impacted by how aggressive men feel like they need to be able to secure the role that they have to play in society. But the reality of today is that because of the systems that we're in, the patriarchy is negatively impacting not only women, but also men.
There's no wrong reason to get an abortion.
There's no wrong reason. Yeah, I guess there is a wrong reason.
So
I wouldn't say there's no wrong reason.
The conversation around the very fact that, you know, we're a group of 8 men, the optics of 8 men in a room talking about when women do and don't deserve to get an abortion.
That feels weird.
It's a bad look. So for me, from a personal standpoint, you know, I have a girlfriend. There might be some reasons on a personal level where her and I having that conversation together, I might say, oh, I think we should do this, I think we should do that. On a legislative level, I don't feel confident enough to legislate when someone is and isn't allowed to get health care. Because that's what abortion is, it's health care.
Yeah. One of the paramount ideologies of, I guess, being a quote-unquote male feminist is just the ability to mind your own business. Just to be able to say that this is the wrong reason to have an abortion, you're already headed down the wrong path. Yeah.
So being an anti-feminist, I look at this and I say, well, I am more religious as well.
As am I.
So I want to say like I'm more like pro-life, right? But if a woman decides that they want to not give birth, it doesn't matter the reason. You know, maybe she's not wealthy enough. Maybe, you know, the father left her. You know, there's so many reasons. And then I also look at like just gun violence and how we're like birthing kids and we raise them and send it to school knowing that it can get killed. I don't know. I would feel like
it's like not it's not the best world to be raising a child in.
Exactly.
I think a patriarchal element, even in your answer, not to combat or what have you, the idea of trying to cycle through the reasons why and going, yeah, I guess those make sense, is still, in my opinion, patriarchal.
Even though I was on the feminist side on that topic, it feels like I was put in a position where I was framed as wrong. It felt like you aren't allowed to have this opinion on this topic because you're not a woman, and I think that's kind of bullshit, to be honest.
Off the top of my head, I know that it was mentioned earlier that abortion is healthcare, and I first want to push back on that. Abortion is not healthcare. Healthcare preserves life, it protects it. It doesn't take it away, it doesn't eliminate it.
What about the woman's life?
But when you exterminate a child, that is doing harm.
Oh, but it's
that
not
is
always
not
a child, right? So it's a discussion when it becomes a child or not. That's not a gray area, that's not a line.
This has been like the most controversial topic for the longest time.
If you ask any doctor,
way before Roe v. Wade got overturned, this was a heated question, and it's interesting that it's all guys just answering, so there's no girls.
If you took that clump of cells out, would it survive?
It's not a clump of cells, that's why you call it a termination. Scientifically, it is a life at birth, and scientifically it is at conception. At conception,
it is a life, but it is not a human.
So look, though, the thing is, though, when you say it's about protecting life, abortions are protecting lives of thousands of women who maybe are not.
My thing with Tucker when he just said, he said it's not a human, it's a clump of cells or whatever. Like, just because it's not a human, like, we have animal rights. I'm not saying a fetus is an animal, but I mean, we don't just have rights for humans on this planet. We have rights for pretty much every single creature, endangered or not.
Able to
At
have,
the expense of another life.
but you're already prioritizing that other life over the woman who's carrying that life.
Because of patriarchy too.
Because of
That's why
patriarchy.
you're doing it.
Because of
Because we've
patriarchy,
already
you're
devalued
basically
women.
saying that
So what if we're
these
aborting a
cells
female
are more
baby?
important than the woman.
I think it's absolutely shameful how flippantly our society has begun to treat the topic of abortion. You are literally exterminating an unborn child.
To
That
protect
is
the
wrong.
life of
That is
another
wrong.
woman.
Then don't have sex without protection.
Really, you don't
And
have
get
sex without
contraception.
protection. How about you don't have sex without
Well, I
protection?
don't have a
Tell them what they
baby.
can do.
I don't have a
Right.
baby.
Tell them what they can do.
Stop
Yeah.
absolving women and
Yeah.
men
Yeah.
of responsibility and treating grown ass people like they are children.
Again, we're not emphasizing any of those things.
I just-
We're going straight to women and making it their problem.
Well, it's a man's problem as well, because if a man gets a woman pregnant, that is his child as well. So one of the things that's really important, what abortion does, is it puts all of reproductive rights in the hands of women when it takes both parties. She cannot have a child without a man. Abortion normalizes women making bad choices. We've kind of given a free pass for people to be a lot more carefree about who they sleep with and not.
My thing is, because I hover more so libertarian than Democrat or Republican, because Republicans are like anti-abortion and then Democrats are like pro-choice or whatever. Libertarians are usually generally pro-choice too, because I'm pro let people do whatever the fuck they want. Like, if it's not hurting anybody, then technically an abortion isn't hurting. Once you get to a certain point though, then the abortion actually hurts the fetus. So I think finding that line is what we need to do. Whatever that line is, just make that the line, and then boom, everybody's happy.
Really think twice about the ramifications that may come of it.
But again, we're also,
Murder an
once
innocent
again,
child.
we're zooming in on a high level on the end result. We're not talking about the systemic issues that cause women to have abortions. Hold on. We're not talking about the lack of resources that make people feel like they cannot sustain a pregnancy or sustain a life.
Right.
And those are things that are caused by the way men have set up society. So instead, hold on. So instead of talking about the actual issues from the top down and going the whole way, we go to the most oppressed person involved and make it their fault.
Mansplaining is overly criticized.
I frequently come across videos online where like a man will respond back to a broad generalization about women, and they'll be like, oh, you're just mansplaining it, as if men aren't allowed to have a voice in the conversation. And I think that the term itself, it's just not really defined.
Yeah, I think it's a dumb term.
Like, it literally is a man explaining something, and these people get angry about it. Like, that's
Yeah,
the reality
mansplaining.
of the times in which we live. And it also
But like,
hurts.
it's not like you can
the
turn
ability
into
of
a
men to have
girl and
conversations
then
with
explain.
women, because you think, oh wow, if I explain this issue to her, then I'm going to be accused of mansplaining, or I'm going to be accused of being sexist because I don't think she understands it. That's
Well, so if mansplaining is a term, does that mean femsplaining is a term? Like when women explain things to men, can you call that femsplaining?
toxic. And it hurts women, it hurts men, and it's just not a way for us to have a functioning
And
society.
at its core, it's completely hypocritical, because the feminist plight is that women need to have a voice and they're being told they can't have a voice. And then they turn around and do the exact same thing and say, you're mansplaining me. You shouldn't have a voice about this topic because you're a man.
And we're targeted because of our identity, and no one cares about it because we're supposedly in positions of power, so we don't get to be victims. We don't get to say, oh, you should feel bad for us, because we're men, so we don't get to have the luxury of having the benefit of the doubt of society or the media or any of those things, and it's a shame. It's a shame.
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to speak about mansplaining from a different perspective, because you guys are talking about controversial topics. I'm going to talk about it from just like a day-to-day perspective. In my relationship with my partner, how I try to be really mindful of mansplaining is when she is sharing her struggle. I think a tendency that can be conditioned in me through just how men dominate and want to have to solve problems and all that is I want to jump in and just solve it and try to explain what's happening here and try to question her experience and be like, hey, like, did you think about this? Did you think about that? Well, I see this. That inherently in itself comes off as mansplaining, because what is the counter to mansplaining is actually getting consent from the other person. How do you want to be supported? Do you want me to support you and listen to you, or do you want me to help solve problems?
It's also
there's no
also not
captions.
just a man having an opinion.
Okay, there we go.
That's not the situation. The idea is when a man interjects an opinion that he either is not fully educated on or does not have the appropriate empathy to be able to talk about.
That's
How
what
is that
I'm saying.
different
Who
than a woman
qualifies
doing that?
Yeah, exactly.
That's my issue.
Then
is
feel
that-
free when a woman does that to say you're womansplaining. I don't think
but-
that they'll
but
get very.
I don't wanna
fix
fix
it. That doesn't
There's a
fix
reason
it.
that term doesn't exist
And that's
because you're not
childish.
allowed to do that towards women in
I
society.
promise you,
today.
if you did that, it would be
That's
just
that
fine.
You just admitted
It would be just fine.
Well, I think the difference is though, when if that were to happen to men, it wouldn't quiet our voices to being completely unheard. My wife is a physics and math. If she has the answer to a question in a staff meeting, she's going to have to be louder than the men in the room because that is the way society has conditioned people to operate, especially in male-dominated spaces.
Yeah.
That's what mansplaining is. I have one more question. Is it about the word?
Yeah, that's what I feel.
Is it
like
about
we keep
the
on getting
words?
hung up on like words
No,
like
it is.
Y'all really
mansplaining
don't. Y'all have a lot
and
of problems with a lot of
patriarchy,
these
like,
languages.
When you say mansplaining,
Yeah.
you have to understand that subconsciously we're already creating a divide when really a woman can mansplain by definition the way you guys are explaining it, and that's just as wrong as if a man does it. So why is it called mansplaining? Why isn't it just disrespectful?
So when your life is
exactly.
not at stake, when you're not being attacked, I think you can focus on life. When you're not at risk of being,
You live in U.S., dude. That doesn't
Men are
have to-
attacked every single day.
women are attacked more.
But I think from a societal standpoint, you guys talk a lot about social conditioning and how women feel uncomfortable. But don't you think this narrative that you're saying right now is contributing to that? Telling women that they should be scared when they're in an environment full of men. Telling women that you know they are oppressed, they are this, they're that. By telling women they're less than
Let
men.
me respond to that. They're not telling them that. They're validating the fact that that's the reality.
Right.
Okay.
Women should be encouraged to be financially independent of men.
Yeah. Oh, it looks like almost everybody. Everybody besides one.
Right? I believe that men and women are equal. They're just not the same. And I think with that equality comes equal responsibility to be able to provide for yourself. And when I think about what could provide for oppression, if that were to exist, would be this idea that they were tethered to men to live their lives. I think if you remove that tethering, then obviously women are free to do whatever they please and exit very bad situations. You know, one of the most unfortunate stories that you hear so often is that so many women are forced to live in very dangerous circumstances because they don't know who's going to provide for their child if they leave. They don't know who's going to provide for them if they leave. And so I think financial independence for anyone is always just a good idea.
Yeah, I want to speak about this through a different lens. I think it should be like women should be empowered to be financially independent. Encouraged versus empowered takes a different sense of support. Speaking to how men feel the need to provide. Sometimes when a woman makes more than a man, men can feel like they're less of a man because the woman is taking more of the boss and provision kind of role in the household. So I think that it's important to be able to equip women with being able to feel like they are empowered. And that is a feminist thing because it is breaking the gender norms of what is masculine and what is feminine role.
Yeah, I also think it is important though in this conversation to recognize the women that don't want to be.
I think, I also agree that women should be encouraged to be, I agree with what that guy said, empowered. They should be empowered, and I feel like every guy should be able to even say that. If they had a daughter, they would want to encourage and empower their daughter to not have to be financially dependent on a man, because then that leads into financial abuse, which is technically a type of abuse where a breadwinner man keeps a woman at home unemployed because of X, Y, and Z, whatever. But yeah, so you should encourage women to be more financially independent.
Be financially
There's nothing wrong with it.
in a marriage.
There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with a woman wanting to stay at home either.
Being mothers, and I think being a mother is one
incredibly
of
valuable.
Yeah, exactly. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're stuck in their situation because they're doing something very valuable by sacrificing that freedom in order to raise our next
It's
generation.
just giving a choice, right?
And their love is their labor,
Exactly,
right?
right,
Their love
exactly.
is their labor in their home.
Okay, I have a few different thoughts. One of them would be the importance of the family. I think women should go out and be financially smart and know how to make money and be able to make money for themselves. But being independent of men leaves this notion of that you can never trust a man or that men are unsafe. And the problem that this brings is in the family. I think
Can
the
I ask you
nuclear.
why?
Hold on, I'm just going to finish my thought. I'll explain. With the nuclear family, you have, and this is for both men and women, they're the most happiest when they are in that kind of dynamic. And to your point about marriages where women makes more than the man, that's one of the biggest indicators of divorce. And I think there is a societal and honestly God-given responsibility for men to provide. So when men are told that women are going to be independent of you, you're stripping away a lot of their purpose and responsibility to be caretakers of women and to provide for women.
That guy's just shaking his
head. I would also
head.
say that the biggest group of people
These guys are never going to see eye to eye.
Are women that are 40, have a career, and have no family and no kids. Which is the real meaning of life is community, family, and relationships.
Can I respond to one specific thing you said, which is the demographic of women over 40 taking antidepressants, and you're using that as proof that they're the most depressed group. Men just kill themselves. So like all the men that have killed themselves, if they didn't do that and we're still here, men would predominantly be more depressed.
There's no basis.
But also the
men statistically kill themselves more.
But we're talking about two completely separate, different points.
Well, I think he's just saying that statistic is a little bit difficult to process.
It's out of context because the men that get
Yeah, but he's bringing up a straw man argument. That's not what they were. That's not what they were arguing at all.
There's other factors.
Yeah, there's other factors.
There's always going to be other factors, but that's a clear indicator that women at some point, whether they started wanting a career, will eventually want to fall into a role of being a mom, having children, because that is what women derive the most happiness from.
You got a lot of studies and stats over here, which is cool. But like when we're talking about financial literacy and financial freedom, there are a lot of women that have the ability, that decide to step back, all those types of things. None of that has to be taken away or omitted in order for them to be empowered. People should be able to do in their households what they want to do. Right. I don't think anybody's trying to take that option away from women. I think y'all think people are, but I don't think that's really happening.
But they are. But they are. We see that in society today. People demonizing women for choosing to stay at home. Female empowerment also means empowering women, again, to make the choice that fits them, their choices, and what they want to do. It is just as powerful, just as influential, just as important as a choice to make to raise your kids at home, if that is what you want to do, and also be the CEO of Walmart if that's what you choose to do. We can empower women to be girl bosses, whatever else whatever you want to say.
Would you empower a male friend if he told you that he was going to quit his job to be a full-time stay-at-home father?
If he wants to. What?
So
cash in, buddy.
That's good. I just want to make sure because like you're only defending.
I wonder if I should make this just one long video just to knock it out, get it out of the way, or if I should do it in parts.
Women who get demonized for doing this, and you're not like advocating for men to want to step up and do that too. You're only
because most men don't want to.
Why not? Why don't you want
because
men?
They don't want
because
to.
they just don't want to.
I don't want to.
I just want to make sure I follow your logic.
Are you pro-choices or pro-less choices?
This is a trap. This is a trap.
What do you mean by that?
Are you pro-choices? Are you pro-less choices?
When I asked him why he doesn't encourage men, he said because they don't want to do that. So then why is it a problem if women don't want to be stay at home?
I'm not encouraging women to stay at
choice
home.
too.
I'm not encouraging women to stay at home.
I'm
saying that they have a choice, and I'm not for taking choices away from women. You may be. I don't know.
All right, reset.
Uh-oh, you guys heard
Your
that?
pain is exaggerated. Okay, I'm glad no one stepped forward for that.
I'm gonna change my mind.
All right, next prompt. Innocent men.
Well, that was a fast prompt. Yeah, because as a guy, what can you say? Yeah, women are exaggerating period cramps. No, like we don't know. For all we know, like how women that I know in my life, they could be telling the truth that it's the most unbearable pain in their life, which means I'll never experience that pain.
Because of feminism.
Besides childbirth, innocent men suffer because of feminism. Yeah.
So I think today in 2022, feminism has changed drastically.
Yeah, it's a lot different.
It's really turned into demonizing masculinity in men while promoting masculinity in women, and with that, good men are being pushed to the wayside and pushing parts of themselves down and not embracing their own masculinity because society is telling them that it's wrong.
100%. I think like anything that is deemed masculine is seen as now toxic.
Yeah.
And, I see it all over social media.
Like that other phrase, toxic masculinity.
Especially even like against or even for yourself, without it being like some weaponized in some way or shape or form.
Yeah. It's a shame that feminism has become less about actual equality and more about supremacy. It's not about equal rights between men and women. It's about women being superior to men. And women don't even like it anymore, right? I hear conversations with so many girls that are friends of mine. They're like, I hate what feminism has become because it makes me feel as if I'm a victim, and also too that men aren't supposed to be men anymore. It almost absolves us of the responsibilities that we have as males in society to be providers, to be protectors.
Right.
And innocent men suffer because we're made out to be toxic because we're fulfilling our roles as men in this world. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, and I mean, I disagree a little bit with saying that men have to be providers, but I think, demonizing those men is part of the problem.
Yeah, I would disagree a little bit, but I think also too, though, what we probably would agree on is that in a society that makes women feel as if they need to be more like men, all you get is really bad versions of men. And when you have men who are increasingly more feminine, you get men who aren't being men at all anymore. And I think that's a huge societal problem, and we see the ripple effects and the consequences.
My thing is just let people do whatever they want to do. It's easier that way.
When I started hearing y'all talk, y'all have a huge misconception of even what feminism is.
Well,
the goal of feminism
explain
isn't to
me then.
demasculate men. The goal of feminism is to fight for social, political, and economic equality for everyone, regardless of
equality
your
of
race,
opportunity
gender,
or equality of outcome, because it used to be equality of opportunity, and that's when I would say I would be a feminist.
But either
now
way,
it's become equality of outcome.
But hold on, but either way, what y'all are talking about is feelings.
Right.
Y'all talking about, I don't like how women make me feel in society about crying, how women make me...
Well, the question was about feelings.
Yeah.
No, hold on.
It was about, are men effective?
Hold
That's
on.
feelings.
Yeah, but
so yes, that's the
but
conversation.
feminism itself is not about feeling. It's about, like you said, outcome. It's about the wage gap. It's about having access to
Which doesn't exist, by the way, right? But anyways,
I
let you talk.
No, hold on. No, you didn't let me talk, though. Hold on. No, you didn't let me talk, though.
It's about feelings, right? You don't want to talk about how men feel. Let's talk about how women feel. Let's talk about feminists.
Again, it's not about feelings, period. That's my point. It's not about women. It's not about feelings, period.
Other women.
Wait, can we have the prompt again?
Yeah, let's cut back to the prompt because it didn't have feelings.
Exactly.
Right. It's about
Innocent men suffer because of
what are you
feminism.
talking about?
And so can I pose this question?
But that is still about
on
feelings,
on a day-by-day basis, do you think you're negatively affected by feminism?
100%.
Yeah.
120%.
And so
I really believe that.
It is about
Can you
feelings.
explain to me how on a day-by-day
Because
basis
it makes
it's
them
affecting
feel
life negatively?
because
The
again,
innocent men
masculinity
suffer
has this
because of feminism. So it's about innocent men suffering because of feminism.
Feminists, what have you, challenges that, it feels like oppression to them. So
Yeah.
it feels
It's not-
like something is
it's
being
not
done.
challenging.
That's just my perception. Feel free to disagree, but that's what it looks like to me.
I'm not oppressed, so I
That's what I'm
challenge
saying.
that perception. But also, too, to go back to your point about feminism, that may have been true with first-wave feminism, but with third-wave feminism, that is no longer
And I
the
would
case
even argue
anymore.
because
No, I
first wave
disagree.
feminism and third
Guys,
wave
bring it back
feminism.
to the prompt. And then also I love the ping-ponging, but just make sure we don't have 5 people talking on top of each other.
All right. There's another side to this too. It's the patriarchy. And so that is what you are talking about. It is the pressure to be strong, the pressure to protect.
But in what ways is our society a patriarchy today? I know you said values, so I would want to get clarification on what you define a patriarchy.
So we should define patriarchy as a group, because I personally am still having a hard time defining it today because it is
So we're
so
talking
massive.
about something that
Patriarchy
you
is
can't
just
even
a
define.
society.
So, I'll try and define. Do you want me to try?
Yeah,
and
let's do it
In a
together.
broader spectrum, I'd say patriarchal is the societal structure that we have set up that's kind of what's the word? Sociological of how we set up a hierarchy in our society.
But
And
a
so it's
patriarchy
not
is
a
defined
little.
by, where men are in charge of power.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
I'm
but
not
values.
saying that
Suffering from
it's
the
a literal,
patriarchy,
it's a
then men
literal
suffer
thing
from-
where there's some document that somebody
What?
wrote where it said men are in charge, women are second. It is a set of sociological values that you
Changing the definition of patriarchy, which is
from the-
fine. I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
As a
That's
group
what my
now.
definition
Yeah.
is. I didn't say there was a set
But that's
definition. That's how
so
I
are
define
you
it.
saying we're not in a patriarchal society?
No, I don't believe
Not
we
in
are today.
2020.
So the whole idea that our country is an oppressive patriarchy, it just really gets under my skin because nobody's able to actually tell me what that is. Well, by definition, the patriarchy would be a society where men have power over women and women don't have a voice. And in today's society, that's just not true. Obviously, some people have power over others, but in our society, that has more to do with economic status than actual sex.
So going back to the prompt, right? The prompt is innocent men feel attacked
I don't even
by
agree with
feminists.
Suffer.
From right? So if you make a mistake, you should be held accountable to that mistake. Now with the forms of internet coming out and communication going everywhere, y'all are talking about feeling attacked for being able to say certain things or not.
Not attacked.
If you
I just
are-
think that psychologically,
It
that
does
some
suffer.
innocent men do suffer from
But I
the
would say they
narratives that
also
are pushed from
suffer
feminism.
if you're speaking about laws. I think feminism has changed a lot of laws
Like
that
what?
now all are women beneficiaries. So if you look at divorce courts, if you look at family courts, if you look at abortion, if you look at a whole host of laws, all of them are women primary, men are heavily affected by those.
So I disagree actually on that. I don't actually agree on the whole loss stuff. But just going back to like the prompt on the suffering thing, I do think that you have to be aware that a man can't just go and say whatever they want, where a female can't.
Should they be honest?
That is not true. A female can say a lot more than a man can, especially online, on social media, on the internet. There's a lot of there's been a rape threat made, and a woman said no one will judge an eye. Cancel culture doesn't come in. But if a man said that same thing, they would get canceled immediately. I believe men today are really weak. Mostly they're lazy, and I feel like there's no courage. I feel like men today are okay with being losers, and I mean more men need to stand up for what they
Okay, Clovers.
and I feel like they don't. There's not enough.
Anti-feminist.
Back to the prompt. Do innocent men suffer from feminism? I think look at with this entire Johnny Depp, Amber Heard.
Oh yeah,
this
Johnny
past
Depp.
year. You have all of these feminists rushing to the camp to defend Amber Heard, and then all those things come out during that trial. And people are like, maybe Johnny Depp isn't the horrible guy that we thought he was, right? So that is an example of feminism radicalizing these people to just be like, I'm going to be anti-male and I'm going to go root against this guy. But to the point of the political.
How is Johnny Depp a victim of the system? He had his day in court.
We have 30 seconds left on this prompt, so just finish your thought.
But yeah, but also to Brett Kavanaugh, big example there. You have all of these allegations that come up when he's going to be the Supreme Court justice that never came up before.
Right, exactly.
What did that do as far as enable people who have fake accusations to say, I'm going to ride the coattails of the Me Too movement and ruin innocent man's life?
Really quick though, where's Brett Kavanaugh right now? He's on the Supreme Court.
He's on the Supreme Court. Thank
God,
because
and then
truth
Johnny
won the
Depp,
day.
was he convicted of a crime?
Because truth won the day.
But that's the point.
He won in spite of feminism.
There's a pendulum, and for a really long time,
These guys, come on.
People weren't held accountable. So now, yeah, the pendulum's swinging. Maybe there are going to be some false accusations.
Honestly, I think Jubilee picked all men on purpose so that this video can be like crazy long. Because they're not seeing. Look at this guy's face. Look at his face. He looks insane. He's doing a Hitler salute.
Stuff going too far. I would rather have 1 million false accusations, like over 1 million people that deserve to be in jail not being in jail. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I'd rather people go through false. You'd rather have 1 million people that are guilty on the street than a million people that are not guilty have to go through a trial.
I would rather have.
All right, reset. Women are fit to be president.
How many prompts are there?
I mean, really, this is a no-brainer for me.
Right? Yeah, I think that this is, I expected this to be unanimous, but I think...
Yeah, I can't believe those other two people don't think women are fit to be president.
This will probably be the biggest agreement amongst the group today. I think that anyone who's born in America above the age of 35 that's not a felon, you can be president.
Right, and I think a lot of times in these conversations we focus on the differences between men and women, but just, based off of studies, men and women are very similar creatures. I mean, we're the same species, we think the same on most levels, and to say that a woman can't do the same job as a man, to me, is completely regressive. Now, I consider myself an anti-feminist today, but this is the type of question that I would be a feminist for 50 years ago. To me, it should be a unanimous, thing stepping forward. But I look forward to hearing what they have to say.
I think eligibility and optimal option is the difference. I think a woman can be eligible to be president. I think is it the optimal situation? No. I would kind of disagree with you where you say men and women are generally the same. I think we're completely different in the way that we process information, the way that we make choices, the way that we build society. Men are very hierarchical in nature. So it's very merit-oriented. I think women are a little bit more communitarianism or communism. That's what I'm looking for.
Communism.
Communistic.
I mean, community-based?
Community-based, right. Thank you. Where everybody gets one. So you get one, you get one. It's not really based on output, which I think is good in some cases, but I think in a general scheme of building a structure of government, I would say having it more merit-based, very capitalistic, where you go out, you work for your living, you provide for your family. I think that's the way that men typically build society.
So even a woman whose worldview aligns with yours, you don't think that she would be fit to be president, even if every single view she has aligns with
Right, like
yours?
I said, she could be fit, but is it the optimal situation?
No, why would she? So is the only reason she's not optimal because she's a woman?
I would say it's not optimal because God called men to be the leaders of society.
So again, you keep going back to God, and we keep trying to center Christianity as like the know-all, end-all. What about all the religions that had female goddesses and a matriarchal system?
We also don't have to sidestep Christianity as if there were not any female leaders.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna go to for my reason why. I think it was in London, and it's before their current prime minister. I'm forgetting her name, but she was their mayor for about 2 months. and she ran away. She pretty much resigned, was done with it. And I do personally think that women are more emotional beings. We are not similar.
And that's actually not factually true. There are big differences between us, and those differences are very vast on the spectrum,
Yes,
but we are a lot more similar in the way we process information.
I was just trying to finish what I was saying. I was pretty much like trying to go to the point of feminism has created, especially Western women, to be more emotional, more erratical on like their decision making, and more like just more emotionally charged. And that's why I brought up the Lyndon thing, where I feel like that's a good example of that happening, where the pressure got to him. Resigning is coward to me, like being a coward.
So has a male president ever resigned?
I'm not sure, but
Richard Nixon. So yeah, if I can interject.
But Richard Nixon, it was because he was getting like put into crime. Like that was the
so it's like double.
Yeah,
worse.
so
That's not better. That's worse.
Yeah.
So if I can interject, so you're kind of using this one anecdotal evidence of like, oh, this one woman got in office. Are you aware of all of history? Because like literally, men led pretty much every
Everything
nation. I'd
else.
say about 99% of nations, forever. So like, yeah, all the good things that have happened for nations, sure, you can attribute that to the men. Every bad thing is also attributed to men.
The thing that's crazy about this episode, it's so long, but it's because they let them talk for so long.
I'm not using this as an argument to say
We're still on women are fit to be president.
men are bad and shouldn't.
And these guys are
What I'm
still
saying
arguing.
Is you can point to any person that did a bad job, and then you can latch onto their gender and say that's a reason why that gender shouldn't do something. It's
That's
not a
the
good
point.
example.
That's the
it doesn't
point.
make any sense.
But I do want to go back to you saying a woman as a leader and how some of those things might not be fit to be president. I think that when we talk about a lot of the problems men are facing, a woman being president could actually help some of those, especially in facilitating a society where talking about your feelings is more accepted. I do believe in
I thought this video would be good to react to.
society, which is why I believe that anybody, man or
There's
woman,
still like
gay
20
or straight,
minutes
black
left.
or white, can be president if they have the merit to be so. But I think that to say that just because a woman makes some decisions differently would somehow have a negative impact on society is all just based off of assumption, when it could actually have a very positive one.
The gender pay gap is real.
I agree that the pay gap is real, but I don't agree with the studies that a lot of people use to say that it's solely based because of being a woman, rather than taking into account career preference, time taken off, the actual way you do your job. There's a lot of other variables that go into these studies, and a lot of times I see the feminists
I
say,
agree.
oh, if you're a woman, you're going to make less than a man, and it's just a lot more complex than that.
So I agree that it's a nuanced conversation. So there's like two things that I want to put up. My dad, right? Do you think my dad raised my brother and I and my sister the same?
Obviously not. No, I would hope not.
Well, yeah, but like in the sense
You're a
that
man
my
and your sister's
dad
a woman.
pushed me into different things than he pushed my sister to. I think women are raised in a way where they're not encouraged to pursue their interests. And now we're starting to get to a generation where I think that might happen, but it's going to take some time. But then the second one is going to be that you get what you negotiate. And this is, I can only give personal experience again. My dad has worked in HR of a company. They offer men more at the start than they do women because men are more likely to negotiate anyways. Women are more likely to take the first thing that is offered.
Yeah.
So, and that is the thing where they take advantage of the fact that they know women feel uncomfortable in a male-dominated space. So you're going to get a job interview. You're getting interviewed by a man. Everyone you saw when you walked in, for the most part, was a man. And then they offer you a salary. You're going to be a little bit less likely to push back.
But that's
and
not
that's
on
my
the,
personal
that's-
experience.
But that's not on the company in that example. That's on the women, unfortunately, right? And they have to be their own best advocate. They have to stand up for themselves. They have to negotiate better. You look at
Or you
this
can just
issue.
pay them more.
When you look at
But
Right,
based
like-
on what,
but when you look at
Equality.
this issue of the gender wage gap, also too, it's the narrative that surrounds it is absolutely factually untrue. You're looking at the average income or salaries of men and the average incomes of women, and obviously there's going to be a difference. Men and women choose to do different things. Like you said, men tend to dominate higher paying industries, higher paying careers. Women tend to go do other things.
I also think that there is a level of reservation that is omitted in these types of conversations. You guys say it's nature, right? I have two daughters. If I push my daughters into a male-dominated space, bricklaying or something like that, who are my kids gonna have to work around? Are they gonna have to endure locker room talk? Those are things that are real things that I'm gonna have to entertain in my thought process when I decide where I'm gonna push my child. So that's why I'm saying it's not just nature. There are societal.
I agree.
There are societal things in place that put women at a deficit when it comes to making money.
If a woman feels intimidated that's on her. Like, that is on her. She needs to fight it. And if I don't believe the wage gap exists because you're given the same opportunity to earn the money. The fact that you don't fight for your salary or don't fight for the wage because you feel uncomfortable, it's on you. At the end of the day, it's on you.
My thing is, I think there's two types of people in the world only. There's people that like to spend money, and there's people that like to make money. Those two things, you can't be the same. You can't be both. You have to pick one or the other. And once, you get into that, then...
job and you feel intimidated, and then they say, oh, we're gonna pay you minimum wage, and you agree to it when you know you should be earning like $20 or $30 or whatever. It's on you. You can't cry about it and say, oh, this is because men dominate.
Wait,
Well, so-
I'm sorry, can I
Go ahead,
interject?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so it's on the woman that she feels intimidated, right? That's kind of the
Yes.
paramount. So then, is that the same when it comes to like once you're actually hired and once you are the energy or the environment that you work in as well?
Yeah.
So you,
100%.
so the company has no responsibility to make a safe work environment or anything like that?
I never said that.
I'm asking you a question.
He
I
did
said
just
feeling
ask you that.
intimidated is not the same as being intimidated or being constantly pushed to be like intimidate. You know what I mean? Like if I were to you and go, yo, I'm gonna hit you, or yo,
No,
you know what I mean?
wouldn't
Or,
say
like,
that. The idea that women are tasked with their own social context and creating the environments for themselves that they want to operate within, even though they are continually stripped of power, is infuriating and is disrespectful. It echoed the sentiment of black people keeping themselves down because of the acknowledgement of racism.
I think we'd all agree, teachers, nurses, medical professionals, objectively important jobs for the fabric of society.
In the United States.
And
So it's just a
we clearly undervalue these industries that are women dominant. Do you think that that's just a coincidence?
No, where I would agree with you is I do think that teachers and nurses should make more money, but that doesn't factor into the point that there is a pay gap, because if a man goes to be a teacher, he's still going to get paid the same amount as a woman.
All right,
So it
let's
doesn't
take a
really
job.
matter.
Let's take a job
Exactly.
where men and women both participate. Like World Cup's going on right now. Look at the U.S. American
Oh my
men's
gosh.
team and the women's
The men's team is also significantly more skilled than the women's team and brings in a bigger
and more
audience.
people watch
Skilled
it.
how?
More people
They
watch
play
it. Do you think people that play in the
But they don't-
WNBA should be making the same thing as NBA
they-
players?
Exactly.
I don't
But they
think
should be getting the
NBA
same
or
share.
WNBA players should be
same-
making
That's
more
That's not
than
my question. That's not my question.
teachers.
In 2022, women are not victims. But yet we live in a society that glorifies being a victim, glorifies being oppressed, glorifies people feeling bad for you, when honestly, all it does is, again, it provides another disservice to the people that are these so-called victims.
I haven't always understood consent in intimate relationships.
One of the problems is consent is not always clearly communicated, and I think that's
This is
one of the
interesting.
things that it has kind of been weaponized against men. Whether the woman wasn't excited about it, or she didn't like the guy, or she was drunk, or all these things that they can use to remove their consent and their responsibility in that. It would ruin the romantic image of that guy if he asked to kiss you or if he asked to have sex with you at every single point.
Yeah.
My experience with it has been a little bit different. As a black kid, I was taught that if you engage in a romance with a white woman, it's a possibility that she might falsely accuse you of something.
Yeah.
So I've always been, I guess you can say hyper-consensual. What that has done for me is it has revealed the bullshittery that is all these like backdoor cuts that men act like women take to accuse them of things. It's super possible to never engage romantically with a woman in a way that she doesn't want. It's not even hard.
There's enthusiastic consent. You shouldn't want to feel like you're talking somebody into something or like they are okay with it.
Right.
You have sexual encounters with people that want to have the sexual encounters, that are excited about it, and that's something that I do think gets lost.
But to your-
Consent.
I'm
one
sorry,
more
go
thing.
ahead.
One
Yeah,
more thing, really
absolutely.
quick. I know young men that definitely didn't want to have sex as much as they were, and they were men, but they feel like they had to. They don't, and it's these things. It's informing young people. Even though you don't want them to have sex at a young age, you have to inform them of it because they'll do it wrong if you don't.
It's baked into our culture from the music that we listen to. It's in porn. It's a dominating culture. When you go into a relationship, these are the things that you see, so you try to enact on that. Consent doesn't make you any less of a man. Consent is really creating the safety for the other person to mutually just be down for it.
Honestly, I didn't really hear anything that I disagreed with over here. It's just the only thing in this conversation that I worry about is lack of accountability, because a lot of times, women or man, doesn't matter what your sex is, if you're engaging in sexual activity, you can pretty much signal that it's consensual, and it can get confusing. But then if a woman or if a man doesn't verbalize it and then they go back, they confuse consent with regret. And I've seen that a lot in court cases or just throughout our culture.
That's where the coercion thing comes, right? And like the context around, like the context surrounding, like if they were to say no, would they have been safe? Would there have been repercussions?
But
are you putting them in a position where
or is that on the woman? Because if they agree,
it depends on the situation.
Unless they were raped.
Like the Harvey Weinstein thing, like if any of those women say no, their careers are ruined.
Right.
They're in danger because they're in a,
that is
like, so
totally
it's the context. I don't think that false accusations, especially for sexual assault, are anywhere near as common as people want to make them out to be. And I think the much bigger problem in day-to-day life is the consent issue, not the false accusation.
That's undermining it though, because you guys haven't gone through it. Saying that is okay is not.
I'm not saying it's okay. I'm saying that in terms of what's a bigger issue that we need to worry about.
I think there are some nuanced issues that we have to pick a side, and I'm picking women not getting raped over men not getting falsely accused.
But that isn't.
I don't think that you guys have to decide
those
for
aren't
that,
mutually exclusive, and it's a shame that we live in a world that's so black and white that you can't balance the interest of those who are victims.
I got a lot to say I want to say. Well, I'm going to wait till the end.
Allegation of rape, sexual assault discredits a lot of other real ones in people's eyes. It ruins the lives of people who are true victims of getting their cases heard in a fair and positive light.
I think what we're all circling around is that what we need in our society is comprehensive sexual education.
Yeah.
And I think the topic of consent needs to be just as important as the topic of protection.
Probably would if men got raped more.
Male feminists are in it to get laid.
That's funny. I've heard that joke before. Yeah, I've definitely heard that joke before.
I'm excited for this one because I don't like women sexually, so this is going to be a very interesting conversation. I think that if you are a straight male, the way you view women subconsciously is always going to have something to do with sex.
Right.
On just a fundamental level, just in nature. Now, that might not be the whole premise, but I do think that it has something to do with it.
Yeah, I think again, the problem with these statements is they're general. I think there are men out there that are predatory and are posing as feminists to get into the hands of women.
And even on a more micro level, so I was literally
those people you gotta watch out for, because that's creepy. That's creepy as
one about a man, he was a self-proclaimed pickup.
Confident or creepy.
And this is almost a direct quote of what he says. He goes, "Oh hell yeah, I fuck with feminism."
I like to think I'm a feminist. I fuck with feminism.
And I think it's kind of emblematic of there are men that don't understand the full gravity of how people who are real feminists feel about the situation. And they kind of see it as this cool hot social issue. And if I talk about it, it puts me in the group of the good people. And I don't think it's always heinous, while there are people that are doing that. Some of it's just such blatant ignorance that they lack the understanding.
Yeah, I think even the posing of the question is indicative of the truth of the matter, that I think a lot of the time it is that, because if you align yourself with a lot of the more traditionally toxic masculine traits and you're not viewed as on team woman, then you're not going to be in line with a lot of Western women in today's society.
I have a few friends that go to these parties and they're like, oh yeah, fuck Andrew Tate. They all watch them, but they'll be like, oh fuck Andrew Tate, just so they can get laid, because they know that's how a woman will feel like, oh wow, they're listening to me, or oh wow, they agree with me, and feel a little more connected.
Wow, those are predators.
Someone who believes genuinely in the fact that men and women are equal, but I don't go around parading myself as a feminist, because the only thing that I could think that justifies being a third-wave feminist, being a feminist today, is you must just want to get laid, because there's no reason to believe in all of these crazy things that go after your identity as a man, that seek to strip you of your masculinity, that perpetuate these terrible ideas that men are bad and evil and all of these things, that you can't be a provider, you can't be a protector, all of these things. I think that has to be the reason.
Some of us don't identify with me personally. I don't identify with masculinity. I might show masculinity, but I don't think feminism is taking anything away from me.
But I think that's a societal problem, though. The fact that masculinity itself has become a dirty word is a problem.
I didn't say it's a dirty word. I'm saying it doesn't matter.
Why do you choose not to identify with it?
Wait.
Even
because when you say it, nothing in my heart feels anything. It's just a word. It's just a. I don't think anything I do is because I'm a man. I think that it's because of who I am.
Yeah. Well,
let's hear it.
I think to your point, asking why would any man be a feminist? So I just think that we don't all view feminism the way you do. Similar to the way the Black Lives Matter movement has been moved and changed and developed in terms of the way that people identify it. The things that you speak about when you talk about third wave feminism is not what I mean when I say that I am a male feminist. And so, yeah, no, if you can't understand that me wanting to make the world a more equal and level playing field for my two daughters, for my wife, for my mother and my mother-in-law, and standing in front of people who want to take liberties away from them, that's the reason why I am a male feminist. It's a perpetuation of oppression that I'm trying to dismantle.
And for me, I think we're taking this from a very heteronormative perspective, right? All my friends aren't straight women. So I'm not gonna look at my non-binary or LGBTQ friends and be like, oh, just because I can't have sex with you, I'm not gonna fight for your right. There is no personal gain for just saying that we should be there.
Two things can be true. I agree with you. And I think a lot of us agree on what we're talking about. It's just these labels are in the way of getting us to that.
It's also a blanket statement.
One thing to build on top of too is, to an extent, leading men to want to take advantage of women is the very pressure put on by other men.
Yeah.
That if you're not sleeping around, if you're not getting laid, you aren't. And that doesn't come from women, at least from my experience.
That's
so,
patriarchal culture.
If men were a little bit so I'll say this now. I didn't lose my virginity till I was 22. Now I'm fine with that. If you asked me at 21 how I felt about that, I would change the subject as quickly as I possibly could because I was ashamed.
They make movies about it.
Right.
Yeah, dude. I was ashamed of it, but that's part of the patriarchy.
This is gonna be the last prompt. I wanna hear everyone speak. I want everyone to get their voice in. Be mindful of folks that are trying to talk. Step forward if you agree with the
Alright,
prompt.
there's about 8 more minutes.
I like living in a patriarchal society.
Looks like no one. Oh, this guy. This is the guy that's gonna say God.
I would say patriarchal society. Again, I've mentioned the scriptural basis for this, but I think patriarchal society is the way that society functions best. Yeah, patriarchy is just a man-led society. So I think we've kind of flipped the term on its head to mean something that it doesn't mean, to say that a patriarchy is a society that oppresses women. That's not what a patriarchy is. So I think if you have a patriarchy operating properly, you have men that are responsible and taking care of their families, taking care of the women of society, and in turn the women have equal opportunities to pursue whatever.
People can say what they want about this guy. I forget his name, but he's very well spoken, even though he always brings up religion.
To be a mom, to be a wife, and to do the things that they want to do as well.
I'll go first. This is a little bit of a personal, emotional thing. At the beginning of September, I lost my brother to cancer. And it took about 2 or 3 weeks off work, and then I really started feeling, the financial impact of it. And I have my girlfriend, people in my life telling me that they want to help me out financially, but I have this thing internally within me that feels like a leech. In some way, shape, or form, that is because of this thing this expectation that we put on men to be providers. It's really fucking hard, and I can't explain why. I would have liked to have a little bit more time than 3 weeks before I had to start worrying about fucking money again after my brother passed away. And I do feel like that kind of is a direct result of the patriarchy. And I know that it is myself, it's my personal feelings, but I think it stems from the society that I grew up in that I'm even feeling these things to be.
Yeah, to start, I want to say I'm really sorry for your loss, because I can't even imagine what it's like to lose a loved one. So I want to thank you for sharing your story. It's really important for people to hear. But I don't think that it's accurate to blame a horrific situation on one aspect of society or the patriarchy or this without any solid basis.
So I think that's a fair response. And to clarify my statement just a little bit, that's more of a communal problem. I wish there was a little bit more of a stronger community sense within our country.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like a patriarchal society is not one of support. It's one of merit. It's one of bootstraps. It's one of strength.
Competition.
Yeah, it's competition.
You said that a merit-based society is somehow correlated with the patriarchy, and I don't see the correlation there, because if you look anywhere in nature, everything is merit-based. Lions in the safari, it's about strength. It's about, competition. That's just how our world works. And my biggest flaw with feminism today, or any social movement really, is that some things are just inherent to nature. So to try to solve equal outcome and
I think his name is
solve all
Christian.
these problems, it's just naive, and it takes away from actually solving the issues that are in front of us, because it's a delusion.
There will always be winners and losers.
Yeah. I just wanted to go back and, we've been asking, what does patriarchy mean, right? I don't think it just means male-led. What I'm trying to dismantle is the institutions in our society reinforcing that males are superior. A lot of societal institutions and staples of our society are reinforcing that narrative that men alone have to take on that mantle of being the one to provide, being the one to lead the charge on fixing a problem, right? Where, like what Tucker was saying, we all experience emotions and, you know, react independently, and we look for community.
Yeah, so I think a direct combat towards the patriarchy is emotional intelligence that we haven't actually talked much about today. We keep going back to business, money, and all these different things because those are things associated with manhood. But if we really want to shift the dynamic, it's about how do we own like the emotional parts of ourselves as men? And that is not a conversation that is had in society enough, nor is it supported. In a patriarchal society, it impacts men in a way where we feel like we can't let the armor down.
That's what the difference between you're saying like third wave feminism versus like first and second wave. I feel like now it's about superiority. When you're saying like you're mansplaining, or when you're like putting that men do this or men take advantage and men do that, it makes it as we're your enemy, when in reality it should be more about like working as a team, right?
I have a clarifying question. So you were describing that it's shifting to matriarchy, right?
Matriarchy. Just like more like being against, like when you're demonizing men for like their actions in general.
Yeah, so like when we're moving towards a socially matriarchal society, it's mansplaining and it's men being canceled. But when patriarchy is in place, we're dealing with issues of
I don't think any of these guys are going to see eye to eye.
Or not. We're dealing with issues of safety. We're dealing with issues of liberty. We're dealing with issues of choice. It seems that matriarchy is less, I guess, oppressively heavy because all I have to deal with is you not liking what I have to say. Whereas in a patriarchy, I can't make as much money. That's worse.
Well, it's not just about disagreeing about whether or not it exists. And the fact of the matter is, even in a patriarchal society which doesn't exist, men and women can still go and make the same amount of money. If women majored in higher paying fields of study, they would make more money. When we talk about men's mental health, I separate it from patriarchy because I think that to be expressive about what you're feeling and what you're going through, you have to be strong. And being strong, I associate that with being a man, being masculine. Maybe society would like to beat you up for that. Maybe that's why men are likelier to commit suicide, but that is still an example of strength.
I think that as we get further and further along the generations, we need to start preaching to young men the type of strength that you were talking about. Self-awareness, discipline, and honesty. Emotional honesty.
Okay, so they can kind of see it.
And not like, being able to go through a lot, but being aware when you're going through something, when you're struggling, being able to articulate that, right? And doing it to the right people at the right time. I think that is what strength is. And I think that that's a positive message that we could communicate to the next generation about masculinity.
We ended on consensus.
Yes, that is a wrap on male feminists.
Wow, that was long.
Nice job, Paul.
They say they hate men.
I'll give them a like.
Trying to become men, not true.
That is true.
Like, she was f***ing raped.
It started getting hostile towards the end. Female feminists versus female anti-feminists. That's the next one. I wonder if it's going to be as long. What did you guys think? What do my lurkers think? Drop a comment below. And if you like this video, just for the conversations that were had, yes, it started off, it looked like both sides were coming off like hostile at first. They were going popcorning back and forth. But at the end, I think it ended pretty good. What do you think? That's it for this video. I know you're finally glad to hear me say those words. I've been recording for over an hour now. But yep, I'm going to get to editing this and hopefully I'll have it up within the week. Alright. Peace, lurkers.